If you still think of a shipping port as just concrete docks and massive piles of cargo, well, it is definitely time for an update. Today, we're unpacking a truly unprecedented structural metamorphosis that is happening right now in global maritime logistics. We're looking closely at the year 2026, and honestly, the traditional concept of a port, it's officially obsolete. Instead, what we're seeing is the rapid rise of these highly integrated, data-driven intermodal logistics hubs. In this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how artificial intelligence, aggressive environmental mandates, and really the most unpredictable factor of them all, human capability, are driving this massive shift and fundamentally reshaping how literally everything you buy actually gets to you.
So, here is our roadmap for this explainer. We'll be covering the Smart Port revolution, AI and the great integration, the high-stakes green shipping transition, the human and cyber crises that are threatening the whole system, and finally, the emerging global logistics hubs that are winning big in this new era.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the Smart Port Revolution.
To really understand this revolution, we have to completely redefine what a port is. It's no longer just a stopping point. It's a dynamic, intelligent node in a global supply chain, and the economic scale here is just staggering. To put it into perspective, the smart port industry was valued at around $5 billion in 2025, but by 2034, it is projected to hit nearly $40 billion. Port operators aren't just buying this tech for fun, right? They are literally weaponizing digital technology to turn really strict global compliance mandates into a massive competitive advantage.
But here is the crucial point to remember. They aren't tearing down the old ports and starting from scratch. Doing that would halt global trade entirely. Instead, they're taking a highly pragmatic, phased approach. Take a look at ports like Lam Chabang in Thailand or Felixstowe in Europe. Autonomous truck fleets are deploying right alongside human-driven vehicles. By letting AI handle the execution side of things, automated cranes can now handle up to 58 containers per hour. That is a massive 50% productivity boost, and they're doing it without causing catastrophic operational disruptions.
Moving right along to Section 2, AI and the Great Integration.
Okay, so to make all these physical robots actually work together seamlessly, you need a flawless underlying nervous system. Enter private 5G networks. At least 12 of the world's top 20 container ports have made this their standard. We're talking about dropping 6 million euros per terminal just to connect over 25,000 distinct devices simultaneously. That's everything from massive ship-to-shore cranes to tiny environmental sensors. And they utilize something called Smart Edge Processing to keep critical data local, on-premise. This slashes latency down to mere milliseconds, which, as you can imagine, is an absolute necessity when you have an AI remotely steering a 50-ton crane directly over a human worker's head. You absolutely cannot have lag there.
But here's the catch. Having 25,000 connected devices creates an absolute avalanche of data noise. A landmark 2026 report actually highlighted an industry crisis they called the Great Integration. See, historically, ports bought software and isolated silos. So the routing team and the compliance team had systems that couldn't even communicate with each other. The result was human operators completely drowning in alert fatigue. Now the industry is making a desperate pivot toward decision-ready systems. It's no longer about giving operators more data. It's about giving them exactly the clear, contextualized information they need at the exact second they need it to make a really high-stakes choice.
Now for Section 3, the green shipping transition.
You might be wondering, why are these automated decisions so high stakes in the first place? Well, it's because international shipping accounts for nearly 3% of all global greenhouse gases. To put that into perspective, if shipping were a country, it would literally be the 8th largest emitter on Earth. To fix this, we now have the rigorous FuelEU maritime regulations. It's essentially a rigid financial math problem, and to survive it, operators use 3 key mechanisms. First is banking, which lets early adopters save surplus carbon credits for a rainy day. Then there's borrowing, acting as a safety valve to pull credits from the future if, say, your clean fuel supply chain collapses. But pooling is honestly the real magic trick. It allows operators to use a highly efficient, brand-new zero-emission ship to legally cover the carbon deficit of an older, heavy-polluting vessel, keeping the entire fleet perfectly compliant.
And this isn't just regulatory theory. It's forcing real-world infrastructure to be built at breakneck speed through what are called green shipping corridors. Take the Liverpool-Belfast corridor, for example, which is backed by a massive £206 million investment. They aren't just buying cleaner ships, they're actively re-engineering reality. They're building commercial shore power so docked ships don't have to sit there idling on diesel. They are running massive digital twin energy simulations of the Irish Sea, and they're conducting live physical trials of e-methanol. This is exactly how you systematically dismantle the physical barriers to sustainable trade.
Which brings us to Section 4, the human and cyber crisis.
All right, it is time for a reality check. All of this multi-billion-dollar technology and this incredible green ambition is incredibly vulnerable to two massive systemic risks. Let's talk about cyber threats first. We aren't just talking about hackers stealing some corporate emails anymore. We are talking about operational technology, or OT. This is the specialized hardware that executes physical actions in the real world. Hackers are now targeting these private 5G networks using tools like Lockbit ransomware. If they breach the OT, they can literally hijack automated cranes, shut down power grids, and halt global trade in its tracks. So security now requires an absolute zero-trust architecture right at the network edge, no exceptions.
But even if we assume the networks are totally locked down, we have to ask, who is actually running them? Today's ships are basically floating data centers. Just imagine the modern seafarer for a second. Today, they have to interpret advanced data to catch faults before they ruin fuel efficiency. They have to log meticulous environmental compliance. They have to balance AI routing algorithms against actual 40-foot ocean swells in real time. Oh, and they also need to master cross-cultural communication to prevent accidents during high-stress automated alarms. It's a lot. Yet shockingly, studies show that over 80% of current seafarers report receiving little to absolutely no digital skills training.
Which brings us to a pretty chilling number. By the end of 2026, the global shortage of certified maritime officers is projected to exceed 89,500. Let that sink in. This is the ultimate system bottleneck. You can have the absolute most advanced AI in the world, but if human crews cannot interpret a digital twin or correctly execute a precise environmental protocol, your state-of-the-art smart port just collapses into a very, very expensive liability.
Finally, let's explore Section 5, emerging global logistics hubs.
Because of all these factors we've discussed, the tech, the regulations, the human bottlenecks, the actual macroeconomic map of global trade is physically being redrawn right now. Thanks to strict EU carbon taxation, shipping companies are naturally trying to limit their taxable nautical miles in European waters. This triggers something called carbon leakage, which actually incentivizes cargo transshipment to non-EU ports. And Egypt is stepping up as a prime beneficiary here. Just look at the Port of Alexandria. They've completely crushed their historical congestion by forcing digital pre-registration of goods through their Nafisa advanced cargo system. By eliminating the old physical paperwork, they've massively elevated their global competitiveness practically overnight.
But Egypt isn't just stopping at digital customs. They are aggressively capitalizing on their massive solar and wind potential, which is heavily backed by Chinese investments, by the way, to execute a national green hydrogen strategy. They are actively building the exact e-fuels infrastructure required for this next generation of zero-emission vessels. So, by producing green hydrogen right there at the Suez Canal, they are transforming from what used to be a simple transit shortcut into a critical, massive zero-emission bunkering node for the entire route between Asia and Europe. It is a total game changer.
So what is the big takeaway from all of this? Let's quickly break down the new 2026 reality. First, data and AI are no longer just optional buzzwords. They have to be integrated into tools that give operators absolute, context-aware clarity. Second, saving the environment isn't voluntary anymore. Carbon regulation is a rigid financial math problem that literally dictates commercial survival. Third, these new massive 5G networks require military-grade security because real-world physical safety is on the line. And finally, human capital is the ultimate bottleneck that will determine whether this entire high-tech system succeeds or fails. Which leaves us with this final thought. We have the data, we have the artificial intelligence, we have the rigid global mandate to save the planet, but as we rush headfirst to build these multi-billion-dollar robotic ecosystems, do we actually have the human capital to steer the ship? It's a question that is absolutely going to define the next decade of global trade. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.